Hello and welcome to this special edition of Skeptic Takeout, where I'm going to be talking meditation with the one and only Jenna Belk. Hello and welcome, and I have got with me the wonderful Jenna Belk. Myself and Jenna should have crossed paths before now. We've only communicated by message. We've got so many mutual friends. It's amazing that we haven't bumped into each other before now. So some of you may know Jenna from hosting the Atheist Experience. Some of you may know Jenna from the Ethan and Jenna show. What else are you doing, Jenna? And what have you got on your plate at the moment?
Well, I've got Carrot Noises, which is like a live paint and chat show that I stream on Twitch every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Central for a couple hours, and just kind of encourage creativity, instead of playing video games, which I'm just not into.
Oh, me neither.
Thought I'd share some art, encourage art. So I try to keep that pretty secular. I try to keep the politics and religion out of that room. Then I've got Genesis, Just Keep Breathing on weekday mornings, which I think is why we're doing this, because I live stream my 15-minute morning meditations on Twitch for a couple of reasons. One, because I've had so many people ask me, how do you do it? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm not like a pro, but I do it. So I can show you how I do it. And I found out there's a million different kinds of meditation, and there's a million different ways to do each different kind of meditation. And so it's really personal. So I recommend that people be very critical of what I'm doing, adjust it to where it suits you, but also doing it regularly so that if people need that kind of support system to keep yourself accountable, to build the habit like I usually need, I thought I'd just stream it so people can come join.
Wonderful. Right. Yeah. Meditation is exactly why we're talking, because I'd come across you doing your little meditation show. I caught that one afternoon, I think, afternoon for me, morning for you. And it really intrigued me because I've come from a Buddhist background, not as a practicing Buddhist, but studying the scriptures and studying meditation for about 20 years. So I've got all that information about the Buddhist side of things, but I've never, ever come across secular meditation. I know nothing about it. And I was really intrigued by it. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, have a little comparison between secular meditation, Buddhist meditation, look at the similarities, the differences, and just see where we go from there.
Yeah. And you got me thinking, because I realized that a lot of meditation comes from like a woo background, kind of, right? Like it's whatever you feel, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find out in my own way, actually, separately, to try to figure out how to promote this from a more scientific point of view.
Yeah.
Because mindfulness and meditation, that's not woo. That's just human functioning,
It's interesting from the scientific point of view as well, especially from the Buddhist perspective, because that's one of the things that I think a lot of people dismiss the mystic aspects of Buddhism, because there's been a lot of focus on the scientific side of it. The Dalai Lama's written a few books about Buddhism and science. And of course, there was the famous experiment a few years ago, the neurological experiment with the Tibetan monk, I think it was Matthieu Ricard, who was named the world's happiest man.
I've heard of that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know too many of the details of it, but it was like really big headline news, and it kind of kickstarted this idea that Buddhism was really one of the more scientific religions, which, coming from a Buddhist background, not entirely sure about.
Maybe most scientific, but that doesn't mean that it's scientific, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think most is a little bit of a stretch as well.
Is it?
To be honest,
yeah. I mean, I haven't done research on all really. I don't know what would be the most, but
no. Well, I talked to a lot of people who kind of into secular Buddhism and things, and it's it's, I mean, I don't want to go to the, like, not a true Scotsman place,
Right.
but I have to say that it's so easy. So many people just dismiss the fact that there are 31 realms of existence. There are devils, there are heavenly beings, there's karma, there's reincarnation, and they're vital to Buddhism. They're not like peripheral things you can dismiss.
Right. So it sounds kind of like, you know, the Christians taking the Jesus part of the Bible and saying that that's all that they believe, right? It's just about the love. It's just about this. And then there are other people who are actually following the rules of Christianity saying, you're not a real Christian. Is that sounds kind of like it's right.
It is. It's very much like that. And I've often described it as that it's like believing, it's like claiming to be a Christian, but not accepting that Jesus was God, or you can receive salvation through Jesus.
Right.
You're entitled to do that if you want. But there's a real question there about, is it really Christianity? So,
right.
I mean, that's a whole different conversation, because that's a conversation about our identity. And that will lead us down a massive rabbit hole of philosophical kind of meanderings. But yeah, so how did you first come across meditation then? How did you get into it? You're from a Catholic background, aren't you, as I understand it?
Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how much of my deconversion story you're aware of, but I went through this like huge curiosity stage where I found out I was an atheist and I don't know anything, right? I don't know anything about the world that I lived in because I thought it was this and it's not that. So then I had listened to a whole bunch of Sam Harris and his debates as part of that deconversion process, right? Because he also tackles religion and philosophy. But he also happens to be passionate about meditation and mindfulness, and he's a neuroscientist. So I got exposed to it by Sam Harris. Before that, I thought that yoga and meditation and all that was completely woo, because I'd never gotten any kind of like effect. I'd never gotten anything other than, well, okay, well, that was a workout, whatever. But after listening to his podcast, I think it was Waking Up, and now it's Making Sense. I think Making Sense with Sam Harris. He talks a lot about meditation, and he made so much sense because, it's so crazy. It's been like over 2 years since I listened, so I don't exactly remember everything that I learned from him, but he opened me up to the possibility that there is benefit from the silence. There is benefit from the ability to pay attention and self-reflect in the current moment. And then I tried it the way, I used his app, which I have found out now donates 10% of the proceeds to, what is the organization? givingwhatwecan.org, which I think is awesome. But anyway, listening to the guided meditations really helped me get started, because at first, when you first start meditating and you've never done it before, right? Your mind is racing.
Yeah.
And like 30 seconds in, you're like, oh my God, I've been doing this for so long. What's next? So I started off with just 5 minutes and started to understand how much it can actually slow me down. I didn't realize how much my mind was just racing all the time. And it got to the point where I was doing 15-minute meditations, and I realized I wanted to quit smoking cigarettes. And I was working at an office job at the time, taking like 4 or 5 minute cigarette breaks during the 8-hour day. And instead of doing that, I decided to do a morning 15-minute meditation and an afternoon 15-minute meditation. And changing that helped me quit smoking first. And second, it literally felt like after that 15 minutes of just silencing my brain, I literally felt like I took a 2-hour nap.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, this is like cheating, like this can't be real, And so it just kind of got me pumped about it and excited about sharing it, because I mean, whether it's a God doing it or Peter Pan or just, the neurons in my brain, whatever, something is happening and I am benefiting from it and I want to share it, but I'd love to share it from a more scientific perspective rather than, oh, well, it made me feel good.
Yeah.
So.
That's, well, to be honest with you, I've not come across that Sam Harris's meditation techniques at all.
I recommend it.
As I said, I've been completely oblivious to secular meditation. I am very interested in a couple of, well, I want to ask you a question expanding on one thing you said, but I'm really interested in the fact that you were talking about how your mind jumps around everywhere. I've been meditation, as I said, for 20 years now. And I tend to have two extremes. I tend to like have this, what we call in Buddhism, monkey mind, where your mind's hopping about, I fall asleep.
Right. Okay.
It's really kind of, and there's a real art not to doing that. And I've heard said so many times regarding meditation that as adults, we'd think it was so easy to count to 10. And even children, even children can count to 10. But when you sit down and you relax yourself and you really try and concentrate from getting to 1 to 10, it becomes a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. One of the techniques that I learned from the app, I just remembered, was huge. And so this is a secular way to look at it and kind of teaching somebody what the concept of meditation is, because I always thought that it was just closing your eyes and magic things happen, right? But the way that it was put, from my understanding, from what I remember and from what I've translated, imagine you're on a bench. Okay. I'm a big bench person. I love benches. You're on a bench and there's a highway in front of you. And that highway is representative of your mind. Now, sometimes that highway is slow and peaceful and there's stars and there's deer crossing and it's nice and pleasant. But sometimes there's an accident and construction and it's the middle, there's all these different directions. And sometimes it's like that, right? The fact is that you are on your bench and you have no control over what that highway is doing. It is your job to sit on your bench and observe it.
Yeah.
And when you find out all of a sudden you're on a semi truck headed west, catch yourself. Oh, I got lost. Let me go back to my bench. And you just bring yourself back to the bench and back to what you intended to do. And what I've learned is that it is practice bringing your attention to what you want to focus on. It is practicing focus.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Definitely.
And when you can do that, when you can achieve sitting on that bench for 10 or 15 minutes, you have had 10 or 15 minutes of not chasing down semis and trying to figure out how to work a chainsaw, like you have relaxed for 15 minutes. And that is so unique that it just, like the first few times you do, you're like, it just feels so great. Oh, I love it. So I just want to share it with everyone.
Even as soon as you start doing it, I remember when I very first started, I got into meditation through martial arts. And I had for the first year I was meditating, I had a traditional kind of master-student relationship with the Chinese Zen guy. It's called Chan Buddhism in China. But it's the Chinese form of Zen. And I found within 10 or 15 minutes of the first time I ever sat down, it was like a whole new world had opened up to me. Yeah. It really was completely different to anything I'd experienced.
Yeah.
When I grew up in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, and I wanted to be a rock star. I was one of these, I was going out drinking and, I wanted girls and drinking and to be on stage and that kind of, and that's what I was focused on. And I went from that to this whole different universe. It just completely blew my mind, really changed my life for the better and made me a better person, a much, much better person.
That's so awesome. Why do you think it made you a better person?
Because I was a horrible person when I was younger. I think mainly I wasn't very nice. I was, I'd had a long-term relationship from quite young and I ended up cheating on her. It was the wrong thing to do. We weren't working out. So rather than, talking about it and doing it the correct way of ending the relationship, which should have happened, I went out and I did it the wrong way. And it was through meditation that I changed those kind of ways of thinking and those habits. As I said,
so what do you think is the connection of good person and slowing down?
I think you just open up. I think you open yourself up to who you are. That's how it works for me.
Exactly. You become more aware of how you're doing.
Yeah. And
when you can take care of yourself, you can take care of others.
Yeah, most definitely. And there's actually a Buddhist sutta, and I forget the name of it. It's about acrobats, and it's talking about her. There's an acrobat and his apprentice, and it's asking which one is the one that should the acrobat look after himself, or should he look after his apprentice? And it's kind of a dialogue, and some people are saying, well, he should look after his apprentice because he's responsible for his safety. And the Buddha actually says, no, he should look after himself, because it's by looking after yourself that you ultimately look after other people.
Yes.
And that was so profound.
And if you're looking after yourself and there's somebody that is learning from you, then they can learn how to look after themselves as well.
Definitely.
Rather than keeping this cycle going of everybody assuming that they have so much control over everybody else.
Yeah.
Like if you're a teacher and your student is going up to do something dangerous, you better damn well hope that you've taught them enough that they know how to do it without you sitting there staring at them the whole time.
That's right? Not what you want as a teacher, is it?
Right. You want to show them, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
This is the class, take a class, how you do it. But while they're doing it, yes, I mean, maybe observe, if they do something wrong or something. But you have to take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Or you won't be there to help.
And it's funny because I didn't actually go into it with the idea of taking care of myself. It was literally just the observing myself.
Yeah.
Where I realized what kind of person I were and how much happier I was by taking care of myself. It was a complete accident.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I actually, right after I discovered all this, I realized conveniently, it was around the exact same time that I deconverted. So I realized that I was like, oh my God, what's my purpose? Who do I want to be? Because I'm not just going to be a mom and try to get to heaven, right? I get to decide who I want to be. And I was like, you know what? I want to be a helpful person. That's what I wanted to be. I was like, I want to do that. So how do I do that? I volunteer. So I decided to volunteer for an organization that I believed in, found the ACA, found the atheist experience, and rabbit hole, it goes.
For any of my viewers who aren't aware of what the ACA is, well, I'm sure you should do, because I've just made a video about it. If you missed that video, I'll put a link in the description below, and you can go and investigate their brilliant programming from there. So, Jenna, you said before about that you had this idea that the kind of traditional meditation was woo and the things. So I've got a couple of questions for you based around that. The first one is, did you ever look into any of those systems, like the Buddhist practice or the Hindu prana meditation practices, or any of those, or did you just literally push them to one side? That's the first question. And the second question, which I think is much more interesting, is, since you have got into meditation, has anybody looked at you as though you're getting into woo and you're becoming quite wooey by following this practice?
What was the first question again? Because I got lost in the second one.
Did you ever kind of look into that, the traditional forms of meditation yourself and investigate those?
So, no.
Right.
No, I hadn't looked into any kind of meditation before stumbling into Sam Harris's introduction of it. All I'd been exposed to was really kind of like the Hollywood interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Just
that's not
foreign
quite so
looking,
Hollywood
I guess.
as you might think.
It's what?
That's not quite as Hollywood as you might think. That's got quite a lot of real life. Yeah.
That's just real?
Yeah, there's a lot of that goes off.
I gotta look into
No, I really wouldn't.
No.
No, I really, especially from the Hindu perspective, because that's a whole different ball game to.
Well, that's actually, I do need to look into it because it's intriguing. I've heard that just saying the noises and the vibrations can help in a non-woo way. But again, I haven't looked into it. I haven't researched it, so I do not know that. I'm curious though.
Yeah.
What was the second question?
The second question was, have people viewed you as having kind of become more woo? Do people look at you and when you say, I'm interested in meditation, do they say, that's a bit woo?
So when I first discovered it and I first experienced those mind-blowing meditations, right? Where I'm like, there's something happening, right? I think that after doing a little research, I think that it was just neurons rewiring things and just things changing in my brain that I think were more efficient and just felt better. But I became convinced because of that experience that there was something magical. And I was like, there's something we're missing. This is a part of life that is as important as exercise. And it's just getting missed, and I actually called a couple of like psychology professors at universities asking like, have you heard of this yet? Like why aren't more people talking about this? And it turns out, so I talked to a friend on the ACA private discussions group because I was, again, a new atheist and not out yet. And this person was actually, they were like, well, you're taking it a little far. Maybe slow down and do a little more research. And I was like, really? I'm getting woo on this too? Like, man. So I did a little more research, took a little more time, calmed down. And I've just come to believe that it's just, it's just kind of a different way to breathe.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've had the kind of, because mine was so much, mine was a tradition or traditions which were deeply steeped in woo, but I could never, because I've been skepticking since I was like 15 years old, and going out and talking to people and having debates with religious people and people into supernatural things and stuff from a very early age. So I could never get past that barrier, which I'm really thankful for, that I could never get past that barrier of actually believing in reincarnation or believing in karma or any of those things. And, I had a really good friend who I started a meditation group with, and he went on to become a Buddhist monk. So it's so easy to do but I never, this is going to sound really strange, but I never ever asked any of those big questions. I never asked, why are we here, or anything like that.
Yeah, me neither.
And there were so many people around me. Do you find, that going off topic a little bit, but do you find people look at you really weirdly when you say that? Because people automatically assume that everyone does it, and I never have. I was interested in how the world works, but not why we are here. Like it was some kind of magnificent question that we had to answer.
Well, I mean, I guess I was kind of curious about that because I just got really ADHD for a second. Being woo, why are we here? I was just became obsessed with learning the rules.
Yeah.
What are the rules for being here? What rules am I breaking now? I fully believe.
Do you think that was instilled in you from your Catholic background though? Because my wife grew up a Catholic, and she had the kind of thou shall not and all that.
I had like a mixing pot of like a series of unfortunate circumstances. Like the middle of the first 5 of 7 kids born within 7 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of unfortunate, nobody's fault, but just certain things like that caused some problems for me that I was like, I was a bad kid. Turns out after talking to psychologists that means that I was not getting my needs met.
Right.
And I was fighting to get my needs met. And So I was always wrong. I was always in trouble. Everything I was doing was just wrong. So I became obsessed with, okay, well, just tell me what's right. How do I find out what's right? And I think that that's kind of what part of what started me on this journey was just the drive to find out what's real, what's true, what's correct.
Which is not bad questions to ask.
No, I just never asked them.
Yeah.
Or I guess I'd never found any other answers other than like, well, just feel it.
Right.
Pray, you know?
See, I didn't grow up in a religious family at all, so I never had any of that. I can't imagine what it was like to grow up. I mean, even being, like I said, being married to my wife who grew up in that kind of tradition. I can't imagine what it was like to grow up with that kind of, my wife calls it guilt, but I don't know if that's a Catholic thing or a Christian thing
Catholic
in general.
Shame. Catholic shame is a thing.
Yeah.
The more shame you feel, the better sign it is that you're doing good things.
Yes, I'm sure.
How counterintuitive can you get? Yeah. Sorry, I think I took that off topic a little.
No, it's fine. So having started meditation from coming from that background, have you found that it's had a positive impact on the way that you personally interact with the world?
Oh yeah. There are so many people that I try to describe how I was or who I was before all of this searching, and people they don't believe me.
Right.
Like, I'm like, no, I was way more scatterbrained. I was not a nice person like you. I was not a nice person. I considered myself pardon my language. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, but I called myself a bitch, and I was like, yeah, that's just who I am. Deal with it. I didn't know there was another way. I didn't know that you could slow down. I didn't know that there were more options, because the only options I'd been told was find Jesus. And I was like, well, I can't find him.
No. So. Did you find that the actual slowing down was integral to that change?
Absolutely. I never realized how much I spent all of my time either thinking about what I was going to do or what I needed to do or what was coming up or what I did or how I could do it better or what I did wrong, right? It was always in the past or the future. I was never paying attention to how I felt right now. What am I doing right now? It was, what am I going to be doing in a week? All right, let me focus on that. And it's just, I never realized how much of your life you can impact when you live intentionally, moment to moment. Yeah. I have quit drinking. I have quit smoking cigarettes. I have started working out, walking. I lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
At the beginning of this, accidentally, because I started mindfully eating. I stopped eating when I wasn't hungry anymore. What a concept.
Yeah.
But here we're taught you finish every bite on your plate.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, why are we taught that? Like, anyway, yes, it has hugely changed me in a way that I see old people from my history, like somebody from high school or something. And I don't know how to act because I'm like, well, I'm totally not the person you remember. So it's weird. It's definitely weird, but I would rather be this person than who I was, for sure.
Yeah, me certainly as well. But so you interact better with the world, but has it had an effect? And I'm asking this question specifically, and I'll explain why in a minute. But has it had an impact on your mental health? Then do you find it's been positive for your mental health?
Yes.
Right.
I struggle and have struggled my whole life with anxiety and depression.
Right.
The anxiety is an everyday, all the time thing. And the depression for me is seasonal. Like it builds up and then it happens and then it kind of goes away. And doing this has allowed me, oh my God, I stopped grinding my teeth so much. I have TMJ.
Right.
Temporomandibular jaw disorder, lockjaw.
Okay.
And it comes from grinding your teeth, being stressed, just, chewing on your lips and things. And I've noticed I'm straightening my spine. Like I used to start to get like a widow's hump.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm consciously, mindfully straightening myself. Right. So that helps me breathe. That helps me think more clearly. I have more energy. I can focus. I am living in the present moment. My anxiety is lower because I'm not obsessing over everything that I should be doing or could be doing better. I am, what am I doing right now? What do I have control over? Which is just me. I only have control over me right now. That's all I have.
Yeah.
And so it's helped me with the anxiety. And because of it helping with the anxiety, it has helped to where instead of getting depressed and hardcore depressed, like every month, it's like every 4 months.
Wow.
Right now. So it's a huge change, and it's still getting better. It's still changing. I've only been doing this for about 2 years now.
Right.
So hugely.
Yeah. The reason I asked that question is because coming from the kind of Buddhism background, there's some dispute over this, but a lot of the thought in the traditional scriptures is that people with mental health issues or difficulties shouldn't actually undertake meditation, based on the fact that Buddhist meditation isn't just about meditation. It is a path to get to a goal, and it's very strict. It's a very, very strict path. I mean, even to...
Well, then you might be right. That might not be good for somebody.
Yeah, but it's a very specific thing, and this is why I asked you about, because I, as I said at the top of the show, I'm not familiar with secular meditation at all. So I didn't, coming from the background of it being such a strict kind of directional path, I wasn't sure what the aspect of it from a secular point of view was. It's quite different.
I guess it would be kind of like comparing, like for me, comparing adoration to what I'm doing now.
Right.
Right. So adoration for Catholics is when basically the Eucharist is exposed and Jesus is on the altar. Oh, look, there's Jesus. Anyway, there's Jesus on the altar, and you have to be like so reverent and quiet and respectful. And you go in and you're not allowed to talk. Yeah. You just sit there and you just be with Christ. And I actually always really liked that. I didn't get to do it very often. One of 7 kids, church was 20 miles away. It's not like I could just go do it whenever I wanted. But when we did do it, I always left there feeling good. And I realize now that it's kind of like putting dog shit in the cookies. There was some good stuff that I got, but I can make cookies without dog shit. And that's what I'm doing now. Right. Yeah. So instead of having that kind of reverence, it's more of like just respect yourself. Just let it go, focus on what you can focus on or what you can impact, which is you right now. What are you doing and how are you feeling? That's actually something I took from rehab. I guess I'm I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of creating like a melting pot of just healthy mental practices.
Yeah.
That's
not a bad thing though.
I guess that's the secular part is that there is no goal. There is no end point other than, do I feel better?
Yeah. And it's the way you described that is really it's hit me, because you've described it in the way that you were saying, it's just be here now and be present and that is a huge part of Buddhist meditation, but so is the reverence. And
you don't need that.
No, and you don't need that at all, but it's such I was talking to the abbot of one of the monasteries I visit, and he was telling me that some of it's a Thai-based monastery, and he was telling me that some of the Thai people who come really get offended by him because it doesn't always burn 3 incense sticks, and traditionally is supposed to burn 3 incense sticks. And because he wasn't following that particular reverent behavior towards the memory of the Buddha, they were getting really offended. And it's that reverence. Sorry, go on.
No, you please finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, that was it. Basically, I was just going to finish by saying that huge amount of reverence is a huge part of Buddhist meditation.
I think that's the religion part.
Yeah.
And God, fuck reverence, man. Seriously, like I am questioning everything that I used to revere. Even I've started trying to think about how I feel about graveyards.
Yeah.
Right? Like graveyards you don't walk on somebody's grave. But then there's, indigenous people burial grounds that we've built whole cities on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But this whole reverence thing, like why create extra stress?
Yeah.
You've literally just given yourself another thing to worry about that you have no evidence does anything.
You made me laugh then when you were talking about graveyards, because I was just thinking to myself, well, this is England. I'm from England, and virtually everywhere we walk is built on a
people with
1,000-year-old graveyard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I've heard it's actually kind of fascinating. I've heard that that's one of the reasons that like pandemics and stuff will they'll pop up again like a century or two later, is because there's been somebody who had a disease and they were thrown into a big pile with a whole bunch of other bodies and it decomposed, but that disease was still there and got into the water system or whatever. And it doesn't die, and it just, the plague kind of thing, right?
I wasn't aware
resurfaces.
Of that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. But that's a good point. Europe is built on dead people.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at cities like Paris, literally, the foundations are built on
London.
Yeah. So you've talked a little bit about this. So let's go more into the science side of it.
Yeah.
Do you see meditation becoming more science-based as time goes on?
Yes. And I thank Sam Harris for that.
Right.
I think that he was a very, like, the perfect person to introduce it from a scientific standpoint, coming from a neuroscientist.
Yeah. Right.
Who has studied not only the brain, but also the philosophy.
Yeah.
So he studied both sides of this, and he has, I think he's really mastered it. And I love that now. I mean, he's gotten me thinking. I pulled up 2 articles looking into the effects of mindfulness and meditation, because I was like, well, I want to find out what are the studies, like what is the evidence that this actually works, rather than me just saying I felt good, And there is plenty of evidence out there. I need to do more. I just started wondering that particular thing, the scientific part of it. So I haven't done all of that research yet, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I found many resources, and so far it looks like what I expected to find. I'm looking for what I'm not expecting to find. I should look also in your library there where you've got your Hindu, Buddhism. I should look at all that too, But this science, like say Touro College and University System, School of Health Sciences, Publications and Research. There's a 2018 paper on meditation and mindfulness, peer-reviewed literature. Again, I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
But I'm excited about finding more of the science. I don't know that there is a whole lot of scientific evidence at this current moment. I don't know.
Or good scientific evidence. Do you think there might be a lot of bad literature about there?
Oh, there's plenty. I'm sure there's plenty. That's one of the reasons that I'm like, so there's one website that I found called mindfulnessexercises.com. And I was led there by searching for more information on Sam Harris through Wikipedia. Right. And there was this link, I clicked on it, it brought me there. And it's talking about Sam Harris, and it's actually leads with a guided meditation video by him. And so I was under the impression that Sam Harris endorses this.
Yeah.
Until I talked to Thomas Westbrook and asked him, I was like, so how do I know? He's like, well, the this doesn't say that Sam Harris is endorsing this at all. They're just using his information. I was like, oh, I was under the impression, right? I assumed, which is what they were probably going for.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I need to look more into origin. Who's the founder? What's their mission? What's their goal? Are they trying to make $2,000 off of me?
Yeah.
Or are they trying to encourage study?
There are a lot of those, shall we use the word charlatans?
Yeah.
Out there, especially from the meditation point of view. I've been to the kind of festivals and taught meditation in the kind of little peace music areas that they have. And there's so many people who have done a 6-month course in mindfulness, and they're going out making money off this thing to people. And nothing wrong with that per se, but I don't know, I did a lot of years meditation before I felt confident enough to go out and teach people. That's not to say that the quality of the meditation I did was any better than anyone else's, but it just seems a little bit quick for people to, these diploma courses that you can pay £35 for to go on and become qualified. I
don't know what kinds of things you learn in those courses. So I don't know how long things like that would take, or what you would benefit from.
I think they generally tend to be around 6 weeks, the ones I've looked at.
Yeah, I don't know mindfulness itself is just such a generally new concept to humans in general. So I don't know what would be a legitimate course. I just know that when I do it, when I stream it, I'm like, I don't know I'm just doing it. Like, I'm not, you do you, take what you like and leave the rest, just I hope I'm not hurting anybody by doing that.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because you've actually linked to my final question that I actually had for you, which was, you've been doing your meditation on Twitch. How did you start that? And what has the response to it been?
Let's see. I had a couple of friends in 1 week ask me how I meditate, because I'd been talking about it. I'd been saying that it helps me and it might help them. And they're like, well, how do you do it? And I was like, well, I guess I can show you. And Twitch was being promoted quite a bit in the community that we're in, because there's a lot of people who play video games and like to chat with people. And so that's kind of a thing that they do. But that's when I realized, I was like, well, but I don't play video games. So maybe I'll just live stream my meditation and see if it helps anybody. Mm-hmm. And so far, I've had a small handful of people reach out to me specifically and say, thank you for doing this. I didn't know that that this was a thing. I didn't know how to do this at all. And now I'm trying it. And I'm like, even if it's just been a couple people so far, I probably have on average like 3 or 4 people watching with me. And I'm also not really promoting it that much just yet, because I'm still building, I'm still creating it. But honestly, the way I see it is, if I am helping anybody, it's not too much extra work for me. I'm meditating anyway. I'm helping keeping myself accountable, building this habit by doing it. So it's like, well, even if nobody watches, I'm still benefiting. Yeah. So I'm just kind of eager to see if it grows, and if in a year or so nothing's changed and it's the same people and they already know how to meditate, I may stop streaming. But who knows? It may be in a year, it may be crazy popular and people like wanting to learn how to meditate, which is what I want. I want people to care more about themselves.
Yeah, most definitely.
And this is the best way to start, is by making yourself aware of yourself. Yeah. Kind of like you said, like if you're unaware of how you're feeling, how are you going to be a nice person? Yeah. How are you going to be good? How are you going to give back if you don't even know how you're doing?
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of people out there who don't meditate. Oh, lovely
Right.
people. For me personally, I could never grasp how I could have been a nicer person. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but a nicer person than I was without taking that step back and taking that deep dive into myself and acknowledging and forgiving myself for the way I'd behaved.
The way I see it, and this is probably blasphemous, is the God that I used to be talking to, right? I used to be talking to God in my head during adoration.
Yeah.
And trying to give everything to God, worshiping God, making it all about God. And now what I've done is I've tried to replace the word God with the word me.
Right.
Treat myself with that much love and respect. Cherish myself, because if I can understand how to cherish myself, which is the hardest person to cherish, then I actually know how to cherish other people. There's so many people that are like, oh, I care about people. And it's like, but do you know how to? Right? Do you have the feeling, or do you know how to put forth the action? Those are two different things.
Yeah.
And to be honest, again, no research. This is just a feeling, but I would be willing to bet that if we were to do a study on those nice people that you're talking about that don't meditate, that they do some form of meditation and don't realize it, or just call it something else, because there's so many different ways that you can get the benefit of meditation without sitting down saying, I'm going to meditate,
Yeah. Just sitting quietly, watching the world go by.
Yeah. Like my partner, best meditation for him is fishing.
Yeah.
For him, it is a mindful meditation. He is paying attention to what is happening around him, and being aware of his surroundings, and it's quiet. I'm trying to promote more different kinds of meditation. But hey, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, most definitely. If it gets you in that zone.
Yeah.
Where you
secular.
Yeah. And that's the most important part. Get rid of the woo.
Get rid of the reverence.
Yeah, most definitely. Jenna Belk, thank you so much for having this conversation with me.
Thank you for asking me.
Not a problem. And it's so nice that we've actually had a chance to talk rather than just passing each other like ships in the night.
Well, I've seen you on Facebook, and I love the way that you respond to people. I love following your stuff. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. Talking about promoting things, I'm going to put a link to your stuff in the description. So if anybody wants to catch up with you, they can do. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you.